Once, an engine attached to a train was afraid of a few drops of rain. It went into a tunnel and squeaked through it.
It's Thomas the f***ing Tank Engine!
Yep, it's Thomas the f***ing Tank Engine, the king of anthropomorphic trains. For 30 years now, the show's been one of the greatest kids shows of all time. His stories are classic, or were classic. In 2000, a movie was made based off of the popular series. It was called Thomas and the Magic Railroad, though in reality, Thomas was hardly in it. Yep, every Thomas fan knows that this movie was a box office bomb and a critical failure. Even today, almost 15 years later, it still has a 19% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Every critic seems to bash this movie. The nostalgia critics certainly did. The Thomas fandom, on the other hand, gives it a little more slack. As for me, well, I thought I'd review the movie that apparently put Thomas in the downward spiral. This is my review of Thomas and the Magic Railroad. Let me tell you a bit about Thomas and my childhood. Shining Time Station was cancelled before I was born, so I never watched it. Heck, I didn't even know it was its own series when I watched the movie. Almost all Thomas I watched was on VHS or DVD. I would usually rent them from the library, although I did have a big collection at home. Most of them were from Season 5, such as Cranky Bugs, Make Someone Happy, Racers, Rescues, and Runaways, and my all-time favorite, Spills and Chills. Man, that was good shit. As a matter of fact, the Spills and Chills video I had a teaser trailer of the movie attached to it, although it always freaked me out a bit. I don't know why. It just did. I was about 4 when the movie came out. I can vaguely, very vaguely remember seeing posters like on the freeway, but that's about it. I never saw it in theaters, and I got the VHS probably right when it came out. I actually quite liked it as a kid, and so did my dad, as a matter of fact. I used to watch it with him quite a lot, almost every day actually. I guess the one thing that made me like it more was that I got the wooden railway set with Diesel 10, Lady, Splatter, Dodge, the Viaduct, Muffle Mountain, a lot of good shit. That set was a huge part of my childhood, and I still have most of it today. I loved the movie as a kid, but even back then I knew it wasn't perfect. I thought the human bits were a bit awkward, and I'd occasionally fast forward just to the Sodor bits. As I got older, it became more apparent to me that this was a bad movie. I remember seeing the Nostalgia Critics review for the first time, and from where it started, I thought it was just gonna be some guy bashing a childhood favorite. But he brought up some really good points that I totally agree with, like Peter Fonda's performance, the complicated plot, you name it. But this isn't the Nostalgia Critics review, it's mine, and let's begin with a brief summary. Pfft, like no fan knows the story. We start off with some nice opening credits, a beautiful orchestral rendition of the main theme as we are introduced to the wonderful world of Sodor. Thomas and Gordon have a typical argument but are interrupted by Diesel 10, who is back with unfinished business, which is to find Lady and destroy her. Then we cut to Shining Time Station, and the movie goes down from here. I don't know what the fans usually think about it, but good God! That Shining Time song is ear rape! I'm sorry, but the lyrics are just awful. They're so generic and boring, and nothing entertaining happens on screen. Yeah, it's like the Nostalgia Critics said. Such a generic song, sounds like hundreds of other songs. Oh, love that shit. Also, I have always wondered this, but who sings this version? I know in the credits it's Maren Ord, but here, I want to say Alec Baldwin, but that just doesn't seem right. From the show, it's established that Baldwin isn't that great of a singer. Well, anyway, I conclude it's either him or Hummy Man, the composer. But anyway, speaking of Baldwin, we are introduced to Mr. Conductor. Previously played by Ringo Starr and George Carlin, Mr. Conductor is an 18-inch oh, screw it, you all know who he is. To be fair, Baldwin actually does a good job in this movie. He seems to be very happy in it, and sometimes he even goes over the top. Like especially that scene where he has a mental breakdown while eating a carrot, but I'll get to that later. We are also introduced to Burnett Stone, played by Captain America, aka Peter Fonda. At first, I was like, what the hell is he doing here? But I recently read an interview with him shortly before the movie came out, and I was shocked to see how enthusiastic he was about it. I mean, apparently he really wanted to do a kids movie, so that's why he did it. I actually give him a lot of credit for that. I also want to talk about his performance. I know, it's over-depressing, it's in the wrong movie, but I think people don't take into account that it's not really Lady not working that's making him depressed. His wife Tasha just recently died, and I think that's a fairly valid reason for being sad, isn't it? However, Fonda does mope a lot, and it kinda drags down the movie at times. We then see Chingachgook actor Russell Means as Billy Two Feathers. Two Feathers? That's kinda racist, but he's from the original Shining Time show, so I won't go on about that. We also see Dee Conn as Stacy Jones, who's the only person from the original Shining Time show to return. I think this is an appropriate time to bring up the main mistake in the movie, mixing Thomas and Shining Time. Now before I start ranting, I want to make something absolutely clear. Like I said before, I never watched the show as a kid, but from what I have seen nowadays, it looks like a great show. It's simple and gets good morals across. But why did they need to put it in Thomas and the Magic Railroad? It just generates a huge amount of problems. First of all, the British audience, or anyone who's unfamiliar with Shining Time, like me, will get completely lost. It's just an extremely poor choice. I owe everything to Britt Allcroft for making my childhood. But why? Just why did you have to combine your two shows to make some jumbled up mess? However, on the other hand, I wouldn't mind a few elements from Shining Time. I wouldn't mind Mr. Conductor or Burnett Stone if it all took place on Sodor. Like, why can't it be Thomas who discovers Lady rather than... Oh, I'll get to her later. Anyway, we find out that Burnett Stone's engine, called Lady, is the engine of the Magic Railroad, which connects Sodor and Shining Time. So, wait, Sodor is like its own universe? Well, that makes the plot a lot simpler. I mean, I know Sodor's a fictional island where trains can talk, but apart from talking trains, it's a pretty normal place. It's not Narnia, for God's sake. Also, is it just me, or does there seem to be no humans on Sodor in this movie? I mean, we see no humans apart from the ones from Shining Time. No drivers, no passengers, nothing! We don't even see Sir Topham Hatt, for God's sake. But anyway, we find out that Lady was damaged by Diesel 10 and Burnett Stone can't repair her, so he just sits in his cave and mopes. Meanwhile, Diesel 10 has plans to find her and destroy her. Why? It actually never tells us. It isn't at all mentioned exactly why Diesel 10 wants to destroy Lady, aside from her being more powerful than he will ever be. But I'm not gonna pick at that because of the removal of P.T. Boomer. We find out that Mr. Conductor is losing his gold dust. Again, it's never really explained why, but he's just running out. It is at this point we are introduced to Lily. And I'm sorry, but I just can't stand this character. Not because she's a female, I give them credit for that, but because she is so generic, cliched, uninteresting, bland, and boring. She is literally just there to be the person to prevent Burnett from committing suicide. Even as a little kid, I hated this character. She just doesn't do much but smile and experience the magic. It's kinda hard to explain why I don't like it, but to give you a sense, well, she's like Freddie Highmore in Tim Burton's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. As much as I love that movie, Charlie was just way too perfect. Just so bland and one-dimensional. Lily is exactly the same, the goody two-shoes. I'm guessing she was put in to add a large female role, and I do give them credit, but couldn't you develop her a little more? However, it is a kid's film, so I'll kinda give it some slack. But if a little kid notices the flaws, then won't anyone notice the flaws? Well, anyway, Lily is off to see Burnett Stone, her grandpa. Though Burnett looks like he's no more than 60, which means... oh, never mind.